Hello and welcome to the Human Frequency. If you're paying attention to the news media these days, first of all, please stop doing that. Secondly, if you're paying attention to them, you'll notice that inflation is probably the most highly touted problem. And I know tout is kind of a strange word, but you have to remember that the media they want inflation and all the problems associated with it. So they've turned into sort of an advertising firm for many things, be it mortgages or whatever. But what's going on right now is that inflation and price gouging is being kind of rammed down everyone's throats right now.
And they're acting like this is just inevitable. And that is true. Any kind of currency will inevitably lose value. But is it inevitable that our lifestyle needs to go down, or can we reduce our dependency on currency? Every story I see about how to beat inflation is really maddening too. Like if you're looking at the mainstream headlines, they're always telling you how to lower your energy bill by not using the heat when it's cold and stuff like that. And it's just
Stuff that doesn't really
it's
help.
maddening. And there are tons of articles on explaining how your mortgage works, because apparently now it's becoming so popular to buy a house that even people who don't know anything about it are doing it. And they had this really wonderful acronym in one of the news stories. This is what you need to know for your mortgage. The acronym is PITI, P-I-T-I. It's principal, interest, taxes, insurance. If you are getting a mortgage and you don't know that that's what you're paying for, that is a pity, because you got yourself set up for something that you don't know what you're involved in. And many of the news stories are accompanied by these stock images like Getty Images, where you see this horrified 30-year-old couple looking at their slim, Apple laptop with horrified looks at whatever happened to their investment or whatever happened to their mortgage or whatever they got themselves into. I see more and more of these horrified images of young people that got duped into something. So,
Like crypto.
that's a
That's a
big one they're
huge one
promoting
right
right
now.
now. So instead of listening to what they're telling us to do to beat inflation or stay ahead of it, that's what they're trying to tell us. Get a house now. They're never going to be less. They're going up, up forever. Or get into the stock market while it's low, or buy cryptocurrency. All of these are ideas of how to stay ahead of inflation, but still staying in that system and still contributing to it. And actually, by contributing to it and buying these things, you're worsening the inflation problem, because every time that a loan is taken out, like to buy a house, that creates new currency. It's just made out of nothing. So they're trying to tell us how to beat inflation by staying in that system and using it. And I have some ideas on that, and Gabe has some ideas, and we've been really upgrading our lifestyle lately
It's a trap.
to not need the currency. And it's amazing when you don't need it.
It's all a trap because you're sitting around. We don't want to be those people on that image going and looking at a piece of paper with numbers and pie charts on it, just confused out of our minds. We don't want to be like that. So we made some changes ourselves, especially in the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm. And it's very important also to remember that we're trying to reduce our need for currency, because currency equals theft. If you are working for something whose value can be taken down day by day, you've got to spend it really fast if you want to get what it's worth out of it. You can't save anything. And ultimately, if you're working for something that doesn't have an intrinsic value, it does constitute theft. So getting away from currency, but that doesn't mean buying Bitcoin. Cryptocurrency is still currency. Any currency does not have intrinsic value. So even though some people are winning big with this investment or that one in the short term, in the long term, there's no stability in such a thing, because it doesn't have real value. And money, which is considered to be gold and silver, not fiat currency, money has real value. But money could be more than gold and silver. It could be anything of value.
Well, value is real. Price is fictional. There's a big difference between the two. And real money has real intrinsic value. Fiat currency has a fictional number attributed to it. And that, like you were just saying, that number can go up or down. Mm-hmm. It's like if you go to Las Vegas and start gambling, yeah, there are a few people that can come out ahead, but those casinos wouldn't be in business if most of the people won. No, it's the opposite. Most of the people lose, and a lot of them lose everything.
So the theme of this list of 10 things that you can do to beat inflation, the theme to all of them is that you're going to be putting in a little more time, a little more of your labor directly into an outcome, and at the same time also reducing your dependency on currency. So remember that time is money and money has intrinsic value. That means your time has intrinsic value.
And your labor has intrinsic value too, because that is the only thing that you produce. And by swapping your labor for the actual material things that you need, you eliminate the middleman, which is currency. That's the thing that can go up and down, and that's how people's labor is being stolen from them, because it's that false number that's being attributed to it, and we end up putting all of our labor into something and getting less and less in return for it. Well, that's not right. We should be putting the labor into the things directly and reaping the rewards. It's reaping what you sow, and that's how it should be. That would be fair. But in this society, what's going on is the opposite of fair.
Well, in this list, we were literally just writing down ideas. And then we realized after writing down 10 things that each one of them fell into a very specific category of human need. So it ended up being way more organized than I expected it to be. And it pretty much covers everything that the news stories are covering, but in a way that any real human being with a real income and a real lifestyle, not these fictional weird things you see on Yahoo, but real people like us, we can look at this and we can look at each category of need and come to the solution of how to do it ourselves or spend as little as possible on it. And the first one is learning to prepare foods you would normally buy pre-made. So this category would be food or cooking, just getting your meals, basic. And what I've noticed from living up here in the mountains is it's forced me to learn to make things I'd normally buy. And it prepared me for what we're dealing with now, which is this terrible inflation at the grocery store. I've already gotten to the point where I know how to make so many things because you can't get them here. So learning to make things from scratch that you wouldn't even think of doing. But I'll give you some examples of the difference in price between buying it and making it. And one would be bread. If you want organic bread, and you're like me, I won't eat conventionally grown grains like that. So I buy organic bread, and the one brand of organic bread you can get anywhere is Dave's. Any supermarket, you'll find it. But the price of this bread is $7 to $8 a loaf. And that's just one loaf, and you're out $7 or $8, whereas you could buy a bag of 5 pounds of organic flour, and that's as low as $4 for 5 pounds. So between $4 to $8, you can get the whole 5 pounds. So even if you spent the full $8 on it, it's just the cost of one loaf of bread. And you can make your own bread with it. The cost of my loaf of bread is probably about $1 a loaf, maybe $1.50. I've got to factor in baking. There's one example. A couple, just a few more food items that you would probably always buy. Salsa, as a very important condiment. It's about, for a fresh salsa in one of these like pint-sized containers, it's about $5 now, especially for organics. Up here, the conventional stuff is $5. So I can make my own. I can get organic Roma tomatoes, which are the easiest to use, $2.50 a pound, maybe $3 a pound. So think about that. You know, in tomatillos, I make green salsa. Tomatillos are also about $2 a pound. All these things are way, way cheaper, and the recipes are extremely easy to make. So that's one. Tortillas, another very important item. Make them from scratch at home. You can't get them up here. So I found that you can buy now. They keep decreasing the amount of product in the package and charging the same amount. For $3 now, you can get 10 small corn tortillas. Or for $3 to $4, you can get a bag of organic masa harina and make your own. And I make my own flour tortillas. And I think there was one more item.
Well, I realize we are in California, so obviously things like salsa and tortillas are very important to us. Perhaps I'm realizing perhaps not so much our viewers in Kansas or Belgium.
But very important to our Belgian viewers would be my next item, which is mayonnaise. I make my own mayonnaise, and
I can vouch for that.
And it's, yeah. Have you eaten the French fries with mayo?
No, I haven't, but I know that they do that there. I was in Belgium in 2006, and I remember seeing that and being quite grossed out.
Well, they taste
No
really
offense.
good dipped in ranch dressing, so it could work.
Whatever
But
floats your boat.
I make veganese because I don't like the idea of raw eggs. So I make vegan mayo and it's delicious. It tastes just like the veganese you buy at the store. The veganese at the store, from the small to the large, could cost anywhere from, probably around $6 to $8. And to make my own, I'm just using oil, and it's organic oil, and soy milk. I think sunflower oil, you don't really need to use organic on that. I think that's a safe oil. Canola, you always need to use organic because that's a GMO product. But just get a simple cooking oil and soy milk, unsweetened. It works perfect. So I think my mayo probably costs about $1 to, maybe $1 for a small jar. So these are the kind of things I've been doing.
And you can use it in so many things. You can mix it in with tuna. You can make coleslaw with it as the dressing, the base dressing. There's so many uses for these.
You can make a lot of condiments, and normally you would go to the store and buy those condiments for like $5 a bottle, but you can make your own condiments once you know how to make your own mayo, which is incredibly easy. So we've started in all of these items that I've listed here is because you can't get them here. And that's how I learned. So I've kind of had the last 6 years of mountain life to learn how to make these things. And now that the prices have gone through the roof, I'm ahead of the game because I already know how. So these are easy. You can look up any of these recipes online.
It's about a direct swap of labor for goods, and not having to all these little things that we're used to buying, these prepackaged items. That's how you get screwed.
Our next item is repair. You often have to buy a new item or repair an item. If it's possible to repair an item, you will save a ton of money doing this. And, it's actually better for the earth. It's better for everyone. It's less labor that's going into the products. It's less money spent. It's less waste in the environment. We fixed our own refrigerator. Gabe fixed our fridge. I was very, very happy he could do that. It was really cool. We're learning new skills.
Well, we live in an age where we can just go on YouTube and find virtually any type of repair that exists. And in this case, that's what I did. The refrigerator one day just started making a weird high-pitched noise at random intervals. And I looked it up. I identified the exact problem. There's these two fans in there and occasionally the motor goes out and needs to be replaced. And I confirmed this with a friend of mine who works on appliances. I went on eBay, got the parts, probably spent around $60 for the both of them. I opened it up. I looked at the video, I repaired them, and the sound was gone. So
the fridge works great now, and we didn't have to buy a new one.
Exactly. That's the other alternative. Buying a new fridge, which, by the way, we couldn't even do at the time.
There weren't any.
Because of COVID, there were no fridges anywhere. And even when they eventually came back into stock, we're talking about something that is at the low end $700 or $800.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And part of what this is about is it's not just about beating inflation and spending less money or currency, but it's also about what happens if the stuff goes away. I mean, supply chain problems are a reality. I don't know if it's happening naturally or if it's being artificially generated. I think artificially generated, usually by legislation and wars, which are staged between countries and all of these things that are being done now. But whether or not it's being done deliberately or it's happening naturally, it's a reality that there's a lot of items we just can't get. And at the time when our fridge started making a horrible noise, I looked online and saw what fridges cost. And I was like, well, that's going to be a problem. But then I better call and see if it's in stock anyway. And no refrigerators anywhere.
And I know you're not a fan of sewing. I don't blame you. It doesn't
I
look
don't
like fun, but it's a very
I do it though.
It's a very useful skill to have.
Yeah. I sew my socks now. Used to be when I get a hole in the sock, I would toss it in the laundry for one more use. It'd become a rag, and I would use it once and toss it. So I would still reuse them, but they'd be gone after that. Now, when I get a hole in my sock, I sew my socks. And I've even sewn my horse's fly mask. We'll be getting more to horses later because you'd be surprised what they could do for you in these times. But I'll sew anything. Things that people normally don't sew, I'll fix them. So now I've been darning my socks. I am like a 1930s housewife. That's how I've been feeling for the past year, like a 1930s housewife, because this is Depression era. But look, we could still live well. In the Depression, people did poorly because they lost all of their currency. And as a result, they lost other things too. But we're trying to stop that from happening again.
And it's a great way to beat scarcity as well.
Yeah, yes.
All right.
False scarcity.
Yeah. Whatever it is, the end result is the same. So, moving on to number 3, transportation. This is a huge one. And we came from the city, and when we still lived in the city, we relied almost exclusively on bicycles and public transportation.
If you
And
live in the city, that's
if
the
you
way
live
to
in
go.
an urban area, that's the way to do it.
Yes, and it's interesting that there's been a stigma attached to that, kind of on the conservative side, and we are political people. We do what's practical, and there's been kind of a stigma against public transportation and bike by the people who are against Agenda 21, and I too am against Agenda 21. However, the public transportation and bike works brilliantly in any city, and saves you a ton of money, a ton of time. You don't have to park. You don't have to pay for parking. You don't have to worry about getting pulled over and all these other things that
Not
can
to
happen.
worry about catalytic converters getting stolen.
There's a number of reasons why in the city it makes the most sense, and you beat traffic by doing that as well.
You don't have to worry about people drilling into your gas tank and siphoning the gas out.
Apparently that's happening
apparently
now
that's
in
happening,
LA.
yeah.
So yeah, in the city, that's the only way to go, and that's what we did. And we even gifted Organite by bike over long distances. It's very healthy. Out in the country, however, you can't really do that. Everything's too far, and the terrain is way too rugged. I mean, you can't necessarily bike on these roads unless you're an athlete. I mean, athletic bicyclists do come through here.
It's not practical.
It's not practical.
We-
It's dangerous.
again,
Somebody actually almost died. Was seriously brain damaged and injured.
I'll echo what you said. We're going for what's practical here, and if you live in a rural area, I can't stress this enough. Don't just get the largest gas guzzling truck that you can find. Get a small fuel efficient car. You wouldn't believe the stuff that we have done over the last 6 years with just a Prius.
It's amazing what we've done with the Prius. We've gone to the woods. We've chopped wood. We gather dead wood in the woods. He chops it up, and I carry it down in the wheelbarrows to the car. We use the Prius to gather wood to heat our house for the winter. We have used the Prius to go to the waste disposal site with about 12 cans of pine needles. Of course, we had to do it a few times, but we've done all that, and it still costs way, way less than it would have been to just go once with a pickup truck. So there's so many chores and tasks you can do. We've done events. We went and did Contact in the Desert. All of our stuff fit in the Prius. Our canopy for our booth, all of the furnishings for our booth, our camping supplies. You wouldn't believe what you can fit in a Toyota Prius. It's designed for that. And there's others too, but that's the best car there is, and it's a hybrid. So we get usually around 50 miles to the gallon. That helps with the gas prices, which are $6 now, $6 a gallon in California.
It's really, really bad.
And also, the big pickup truck people, most of them have car loans for those because I've seen what they cost.
That's right.
And that's a real problem because you are attached to that. So no matter what happens with your income and how hard times get, you are locked in and you got to pay for that. So definitely looking for a smaller, cheaper car. The Prius is way, way cheaper than a pickup truck. And it's very practical. It's not good for dirt road driving, but I'm not a big proponent of that. I don't. There's country living, and then there's where it's been taken a little too far. Paved roads are nice. We have them where we live. We're very happy with that. But yeah, transportation's a huge thing. It's very expensive. You can definitely pare it down, and also try to go less often. Try to carpool and these kind of things.
Yeah, and don't get a car loan no matter what.
Yeah. Actually, car sales are down now. Really down. Like, it's making headlines. It's making the news. I don't think people can afford them, nor can they afford the gas. So, I think that's good because that's real economy. That's the real economy, is when people buy what they need, and if it's not needed, that becomes obvious, and then they're not going to cost as much, or maybe not make as many of them. Here's the one we're just starting up with. I'm going to introduce my guest, the basil plant. We are starting to grow food, but this is how we're starting, because I've tried doing big projects and then I get overwhelmed and I throw my hands up in the air and I can't deal with it anymore. So we started growing things like this just to learn. And we have a small learning garden outside that we worked in last summer. And now we're going to be able to expand on that a little bit, little by little. So a packet of organic basil seeds, $3. And this is just one of several batches of basil I'm getting out of it. So there's ways you can start to practice growing food.
Yeah.
Because really, you can't just go right into being a farmer. I don't know how to do that. I'm learning. So
Even if you live in a rural area, it's a good idea to start small and just work your way up. get used to it. That's what we did, and it just, you avoid a lot of blown opportunities if you do it that way.
Yeah, I think what's going on, and this is another necessity thing for us, you can't get any food up here. I mean, not only can you not get, the bread and the tortillas and stuff that I was talking about, but you can't get fresh organic food up here. It's almost impossible, especially leafy greens. Leafy greens are nowhere to be found. So that's how we started. We said, let's just start with herbs, and we did some kale in the garden last year, and we'll do some lettuce and stuff like that. So this is just my basil, and I have some cilantro indoors, and now once it stops,
Scallions too.
the scallions, and then once it stops freezing, you can actually grow onions in freezing weather. Our onions survived the winter out there, and it went down to 6 degrees, so that's pretty good. That's 6 degrees Fahrenheit.
And we got a foot and a half of snow at one point.
They were buried, and
The
they
snow
survived.
just melted off, and they still lived. They're keeping on going.
But a lot of plants can't. So up here, if you have any potentials for freezes, I would wait until that's over to start. So we're going to start sprouting them indoors in the window and putting them out probably at the very beginning of June. That's when it freezes till the end of May. So that's when we're going to do it.
And we have projects in the works. We're going to be doing raised beds, and we have the materials to build a small greenhouse. So we will be doing both of those things, and it's just, you got to start small and work your way up to those things, and then you can start growing more and more stuff, and grow stuff that normally would not grow in a climate. This is a very excuse me, very inhospitable climate to a lot of the plants that we would grow if we were in a more temperate zone.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also very, the soil here is very poor. So you have to
That
make
too.
raised beds, and you have to add amendments to them and stuff. So we definitely didn't rush this process. But yeah, I recommend just trying it as a little project. You could buy a few pots like this at the hardware store, and just a little potting soil. It doesn't really take that much. It's not that much of an expense to get started. And the packets of the seeds for the herbs are, a few bucks each. I paid $3 for the basil seeds. And I actually got my cilantro seeds from a cilantro plant I let go to seed, and it's producing. So that's cool. You can do that too. And just practice. I think that, it's better than watching stupid videos on the internet. Like this one. but seriously.
Well, this one is growing food is related to the first point, which is preparing food. The two go hand in hand. But talk about beating inflation. The earth gives us everything we need, and it's going to give you the same amount no matter what the fictional value of the dollar is. It's a way to completely get around that.
And the next point would kind of fall under the category of housing/storage, just whatever buildings you need. I mean, let's get real, houses are it's just a tent with just a shelter. So this was all about getting rid of possessions. And I realized this point is all about how much rent you're paying, how much space you need. The possessions themselves are not really the issue. It's what do you do to keep them? How much do you have to pay per month to store them? So we've gotten rid of a ton of stuff. We downsized from a 3-bedroom. We didn't need a 3-bedroom. That's just what was available when we moved here. So we ended up in a too big of a house, and we downsized to a 1-bedroom, which is a little smaller than we need because we don't have a workroom. So we managed, though, and we got rid of a ton of stuff. We literally got rid of 2 bedrooms worth of stuff. It was kind of like a big purge, but I don't miss it. That's the thing that's interesting. And anything we felt we needed to keep, we kept in our attic here. And I'm actually starting to evaluate that stuff, and I'm going to get rid of some of that too.
Because it's against our nature to hoard stuff. And this is a really, really important point, because out here in the country, there's a lot of hoarding going on, and senseless hoarding too. Like, you wouldn't believe some of the backyards and front yards that we've seen.
Like ours. You cannot believe what we inherited here. But I love my inheritance, and I'm cleaning it up. So Gabe and I are both clearing a lot of junk. There's always a lot of junk in the country to get rid of. But I don't want my stuff to just be junk. So if I don't need it, I give it away. I sell it if it's something that I feel like I can get something for and it will help me. Most of the stuff was just given away. It's fine. We get it from the thrift store. We give it back to the thrift store.
Yeah.
So, we've downsized and we've saved hundreds of dollars a month in rent. So that's really reduced our need for that system of currency. It's been huge for us, the savings. We've given up a lot, but the amount we're saving has bought us time and allowed me to do more. Like, I can concentrate more on writing and things that I normally couldn't, and also to do the gardening and all of the repairs on the property, we wouldn't have been able to do any of that. We wouldn't have had the time when we were trying to make the money to pay that old rent. So reducing your storage needs too. I mean, I know people who have storage places. I mean, that's just too much.
Well, materialism is, you have to remember, it's not just costly financially, it's also mentally taxing. When I know that when there's a lot of stuff lying around, I just throw my hands up in the air and I'm like, I can't deal with this. I would love for all this stuff to be gone. It's a simplification of the whole lifestyle to get rid of stuff, because you don't actually need a lot of stuff. My mom's side of the family are notorious pack rats, so I have a little bit of that in me, but I also have my dad's sensible side. I can't believe I'm using those two words together, but they got no offense if you're watching, but this is not something that's healthy to have a lot of stuff around that you don't need. It collects dust, and in many cases it collects rodents.
Oh yeah, the rodent problem is real.
Out here it absolutely is. So that is a huge no-no.
Yeah, hoarding is really, really
lifestyle.
bad. And especially if you just leave that stuff and let it deteriorate and let the squatters come and destroy it, and who knows what happens to your stuff.
But I have that other half in my blood that recognizes just how harmful that lifestyle is, and that you can't let stuff accrue to the point where you don't even know what you have. That happens a lot with people, and that's no good. That's something to avoid. Our
next topic is water. So that the next one is how we deal with our water needs. Need water?
I actually do.
I just thought of this one, and it's something I don't really do, but I realize people do this all the time. Cut out the recreational beverages and the single serving stuff. You go and just take one of these expensive juices or teas out of the fridge at Whole Foods or whatever. If you could cut that out, you'll save a lot of money. And that also includes your daily Starbucks habit. I mean, I used to work at a Starbucks a long time ago, and we had regulars. They came in every day, and their coffee budget per day was $3 to $4 usually per person. But you think about that, that's like $100 a month. I mean, that's a big beverage budget. So,
and with inflation nowadays, you could double that, and it's probably about $8 a day. So
yeah.
What is that per month, and how much are you saving by, again, just getting the beans yourself in bulk? And
this turned into a discussion
them.
About coffee. It's supposed to be about water, like basic human needs, and it's turned into the Starbucks and Whole Foods beverage discussion.
Is that a problem?
Well, I think a lot of people drink that. I mean, so I guess what my point is here, and yes, coffee, of course, it's better to make it at home. But my point is, if you buy a gallon of distilled water, and we drink distilled water, it's the healthiest thing you can do because it doesn't have any junk in it. And I know people are going to disagree with me on this, and I will see it below in the comments, but that's okay. That's what I do. That works for me. Distilled water per gallon, or we distill it ourselves at home, is way, way cheaper than buying a single serving of water. I mean, one single serve of water costs more than a gallon of distilled. So definitely recommend buying water in large amounts. And yes, of course, you have to buy it or clean it. It's not safe out of the tap, but you can reduce the cost of that. The recreational beverage spending, it's huge. I can't believe how much people spend. And I used to do it a little bit, but I don't do it anymore really at all, except if we're traveling and I have to get an Earl Grey tea to stay awake.
DIY. Does anyone see the underlying theme here? This is no matter what it is. It's all about doing things yourself that you would normally just pay others to do, but that's untenable anymore.
So another huge one is communication, which would be phone. Most people use cell phones. We do not advocate for using cell phones for health reasons, but also the expense of it. We use the voice over internet phone for our landline, and it costs us about $5.50 a month right now because it's the UMA plan, and it's just tax and insurance, or tax and fees. Sorry. Once you pay for the device, you just pay taxes and whatever, fees, and there's no charge for the service. There's other ones where you pay for the service, but they're all really cheap, and you just find which one works for you because everybody needs different things. But if you use a voice over internet phone, it costs just like no more than $15 a month, for getting a higher service that has more features. And the landline phones, those are very expensive, but a lot of elderly people like to have the landline. I know this because someone that's on the older side just told me this yesterday, that they feel very dependent on having that for emergencies and stuff. So, but landline, that's it. Cell phones, they've got to go. They're just too, not just bad for you, but too expensive. An iPhone costs about $1,000. And the plan per month, I don't know. You told me what it costs, $69. I'm like looking at what was written down because I don't know.
Between $60 and $90 a month generally but it could be lower, I'm sure, but it could also be higher depending on what you get. But even if it's lower, that's still way too much to be dropping on that.
A landline phone also costs $60 to $90 a month. If you get the regular, traditional copper landline. But if that's all you have and don't have the cell phone, you're saving on that end. And if you don't need to feel that, that you have it all the time in case of 911 calls, the voice over internet is fine. And if you have a generator, it's really fine because it'll keep working even in a power outage. So those are some options for phone. I think the big one here is just don't use the smartphone. I mean, have an emergency cell phone. Get a less expensive one. It's something, even a used smartphone. That's what we have. We bought a used iPhone for like $120 something, and it's got a $3 a month plan. So that's very, very cheap. And the only reason we have the iPhone instead of a regular phone is it's just what works. It's a modern phone. I know it'll work. And if I have to go online for something, I can do it. It's something I almost never do, but it's good to have the option.
Number 8, hugely, hugely important. Don't take loans. Don't take any loans for anything, no matter what it is. If you really want to do some damage to the Matrix, don't take loans, because the Matrix needs loans. It needs constant loans in order to keep itself propped up.
I guess this would fall under the category of finance. Everyone needs to know how to finance the things they need.
Yeah.
Because we live in a society that relies on currency. Currency creates the need for finance, and we call that asset management. That's what, when we do business, we're managing the assets of the business. And that's what you do in life. Your whole life is asset management, if you think about it. You have to balance this and balance that, and how am I going to cover this? When you're relying on currency, you absolutely need to be concerned with the finance. And if you can do more and more without the need for it, you wouldn't have to do the juggling act. So I guess getting the loan is just, it's a trap because everything ends up costing way more. Yeah. I think everyone knows that, but it just seems like a no-brainer, but I guess it needs to be said.
Yeah, usury is one of the most unlawful things in existence. And the system not only encourages it, just forces it down people's throats, but it needs it. The whole thing would just completely collapse overnight if people stopped taking loans. And I'm not just talking about house loans. I'm talking about car loans. I'm talking about loans for even smaller things.
Yeah, consumer loans.
Yeah.
They have all kinds of loans for consumers. And it is a huge trap because what I've noticed is if in times where it's kind of lean and I don't have much coming in, all of a sudden I don't need as much. I'm not spending as much. I feel like when it comes in, you have to spend it almost because it's the law. It's the law of the universe. The currency comes in, it goes out because it has to be traded for something. The currency itself is nothing. It's like the hot potato that everyone's passing around.
Yeah, I noticed that in my early 20s, that very thing, and I was perplexed by it. I didn't fully start to understand it until I actually looked into how currency works, how real money works, and how the system that's going on is just so totally unlawful.
It's terrible. If you think about it, we rent our house and it costs us the first month's rent and a security deposit, which was equal to a month's rent to move in. And we were in. If we were to buy the same house, we would have to fork over tens of thousands of dollars for a down payment. People don't have that in general, so I don't even know how they're doing all that they're doing. I think that people are getting really big loans with really low down payments.
We don't have that.
Nobody has that. But to rent it was like, oh yeah, no problem. We could do that. But you have to think about that. How much are you putting into it? And then if you do lose it for not paying it, you don't get that down payment back. You're not getting your security deposit of $30,000 or $40,000 back or more. So,
and even if it works out, you're still renting from a bank. That's what a mortgage is.
Yeah. The mortgages are a huge, huge trap. And they do want people locked in right now at these really, really high home prices because something terrible is about to happen. I feel it very strongly that something terrible is going to happen to the people who are buying houses, but It's hard to say because it's seeming to take too long. It seems like it should have already happened.
It,
So
it
I
is
don't know.
it is a protracted process, but every bubble does burst. It's a scientific fact. It
Now,
has to.
a lot of people are taking loans for things besides houses. I just wanted to give one quick example because when I don't have money, I don't need to spend it. And when I have it, it disappears. But I'm seeing people are making money that doesn't even exist yet disappear. And they're taking loans for things that they don't really need. So I know two people up here in the mountains that wanted hay storage. And both of them took loans to get it when in actuality they already had the means to store the hay. They just wanted a separate building and they wanted more space. And really, in my case, I would have just maximized the storage that was already on the property in both cases and not taken a debt for something like that. So, I would have come up with a
other words-
resourceful way using the resources at hand.
In other words, you would have worked with what you had
Right.
on hand
Right.
to get the thing that you needed.
Yeah, so there are ways that you can avoid it. And I do notice the car sales are down. That's a good thing. That means car loans are going to be down. Taking money out of that is a good thing to do because every loan that's generated is more currency created. That means you have to work harder because it's being more and more devalued. Your labor is devalued. Loans, when you take the loan, you literally devalue yourself.
And DIY, the whole idea of it is about withdrawing your support from that thing, and it's spiraling out of control. So there's no reason to feed it anymore. It's not like you're actually gaining from it. It's just the unjust enrichment going on right now. It's off the hook. I can't even. I get dizzy thinking about it sometimes.
I know he hates it when I tell him about the property history. I like to look at the property histories of things and see the ups and downs. I think it's interesting, but it's becoming, I guess,
I
nauseating.
hate when you go on so.
But it's interesting. Okay. But anyway, we don't play that game.
It's minorly interesting,
Okay.
but when you look at the sheer greed of the humans right now, and that's all it is. That's all it is. Inflation is a word that's thrown around a lot, but the word that's not being thrown around is price gouging. That's mostly what's going on. The Bible predicts it.
It's
Brother
unjust.
against brother in the end times. And that's everyone is of one blood, but they're not treating each other as such. They're they don't care how many people they screw just so that they get what they want and continue to build their fictional imagination and their empire.
And, what's funny? I forgot to mention this when we were talking about transportation because I was about to go on to the next one, but I forgot to mention when we were talking about transportation and I said I would talk about horses. Did you know that horses were once used as transportation? And in the country, they're everywhere. I mean,
And not that long ago.
we have a glut of horses in the country. There are horse rescue ranches because there are too many horses. It's just like dogs and cats. People don't realize that people are breeding horses and then abandoning them. They were because they're stupid. They think it's going to be like a dog or cat. And then they have this big, huge wild farm animal they don't know what to do with. So rescue ranches abound in California. And we actually rescued a horse too. That's how I know about this. 4 years ago, we rescued a horse that was abandoned. And they're everywhere. And it turned out that my horse is a great transportation animal. I could literally use him to go to the post office or the store and back. I mean, this is how people did it, not that long ago. And it's a lot cheaper than keeping a car. People don't realize that they're just out there in the pastures. They're just living here, They could be tamed and trained and used for transportation. So definitely I think that we may be going back that way. I feel it.
absolutely.
I feel that we could be reverting, but I think that's a good reverting because it's good for us. It's good for the horses.
Well,
you
what
know?
happens when gas hits $10 a gallon, $20, $50? I mean, what? How? I mentioned that this is spiraling out of control, and it really is. How high does it have to go before people take action?
Yeah, it's becoming ridiculous. So there are things we could, and by the way, the horses just eat grass too. I mean, a lot of their food just comes from the earth. It's not like cars, which are just against everything, It's like jet propulsion motors, It's all just the way that the engines are made. It's so against the natural flow and harmony of the universe.
And by the way, here in California, there is no drought. Don't believe the media's
It's so
lies
beautiful.
about it. It's so green
It's
here.
unbelievable.
It's insane. The grass is coming up early. There's puddles of water in places where there's sun. In places where there's shade, there's still snow
It
even.
snowed a few days
there's-
ago. It snowed just a week ago.
Yeah, and there's poppies. There's
It's so
poppies
beautiful.
already blooming on the hillside, and there's going to be huge swaths of them come May.
Yeah,
I
and
guarantee
if
you.
you're driving from LA north into the Grapevine, there's already hills painted completely orange with poppies. It's so beautiful out there, and I know there's no drought here. It's
a lie.
This is a great place to live and to grow food and everything. California is a really good place. Don't believe the hype. This place is so much better than people think it is. It hasn't burned to the ground. Those are lies. There's so much we can do with the land here. If I had the opportunity to live in a warmer part of California, I mean, we would grow orchards of fruit trees and stuff. You know, there's so many things you can do here. And we will one day, I think.
I know you were telling people from LA driving north through the Grapevine. This ties in with number 9. No recreational travel.
Yeah, no recreational travel. Well, this is the category of recreation. And why do we need to recreate when the creation is already here? You know, what are we recreating? All that travel means to me is that I have to brush my teeth in a different place while being exhausted from traveling to get there, and then sleeping in a different bed and not sleeping well.
An uncomfortable bed.
Trying to find food. What is the point of doing your daily tasks in another location that looks different? To me, it makes no sense unless I'm tower busting. So I don't travel recreationally. It seems pointless and expensive, especially nowadays, not just because of COVID, but because the food is so toxic.
Oh, yeah.
The atmosphere is so toxic. I can't sleep in hotels with the Wi-Fi and all of that. So what's the point?
And the thing is, when you start to do things this way, when you start to do things for yourself, you'll see that the way everyone else does things is inferior compared to how you do them. So that decreases the need to travel even more, I would think, at least for recreational purposes.
And I mean, there's so many other things that fall under that category of recreation, like going and seeing a terrible musical performance or something. I mean, there's nothing good to go see anyway, or overpaying for a terrible Hollywood movie. Do people even do that anymore?
I don't.
know. We don't live in the city. We're so apart from it now. But yeah, I don't see any need to recreate.
Okay, last
one,
item
number
on
10.
the list, and very, very important, especially over the past 2 years, avoid the medical/pharmaceutical industry like the plague.
So this falls under the category of medical. So each one of these has covered a basic human need. Our health plan is we eat organic food, we drink distilled water, and we use chlorine dioxide solution if we start to get the sniffles. And we don't get sick anymore. The second you feel it
Never.
starting. We've been doing it for 6 years.
As soon as you get that tender spot back there, whatever that thing is, you just immediately take it. You avoid the whole experience.
It cures
if
everything.
you knock it out early.
It cures everything. And, I know people who are getting themselves damaged. They're taking the COVID vaccine and they're getting damaged. I know somebody who lost all feeling from her waist down after taking this shot. And she's just now, maybe a year later, starting to regain some feeling back in her thighs, but not below. It's very hard for her to walk and function normally. So it's just not worth the risk. And there's always a natural way. So even if you're on the fence about it, which I think probably people who are listening to this, they probably don't want to take a vaccine. But even if you're on the fence about it, just always look at the options. Don't just jump into the pharmaceutical solution. I know somebody else who just lost a relative at the age of 50 because he was taking a chemo drug for rheumatoid arthritis. They give them a chemo drug which masks the symptoms of the rheumatoid arthritis, but it destroys people's kidneys. And so the doctor hadn't been watching that carefully enough, and this man died at the age of 50. He didn't die from his health condition. He died from the medicine they were giving him. So yeah.
The treatment.
Also, health insurance. I mean, it's an impossible expense. I mean, the last time I had health insurance, my job paid for it. And if I had to pay for it myself, I wouldn't have been able to. Even with the job that I had, it wouldn't have paid for it if they didn't pay for it. It's just too expensive and it's too deadly. And I'm always hearing problems like somebody told me just yesterday that they were having a very hard time getting their lab test results. I know this because I had to get them once before. They make you go through all these hoops and you have to log into something and get them online, and they won't send them to you. Everything's computerized and impersonal, and the whole hospital experience is almost frightening. If anybody's ever had a surgery and gone into that cold operating room, I had a minor surgery once, and it was spooky going in there. It was weird. I felt like I was being taken into a spaceship.
I had a hospital stay once for about 4 days in 2009. I'll never forget that. I'm loath to even go near a hospital now. So and the best way around that is to just, as you were saying, just stay healthy. The reason that germ theory is a hoax is because germs are around us all the time, but our bodies need to be in good working order in order to fight them off. It's when our bodies are compromised that there's that imbalance, and the germs take over and start giving us all of these problems.
Yeah.
But by staying healthy, we could avoid, oh my God, we could avoid so many hardships, and the medical industry would just go bankrupt overnight.
Oh, yeah, I know. And if CDS were more widely used as a cure for all diseases, which it is, there would be no medical industry, because almost all disease is caused by, all disease is caused by parasites and pollutants, all of it. And that's according to Hulda Clark. And her zapper does what the CDS does. It kills all that. So that's every disease, and they try to make it like each one's different and make us spend different amounts of money for different things. And really, it's all the same disease. So definitely that is something you can get online. You can even get it on Amazon. It's a camping supply called water purification. You can definitely get it easily. You just don't use it exactly as directed. You use it really at a more concentrated amount. But we have videos about that too, so you could check that out and see what we said about that.
Yeah.
We've been doing it since 2015, I think. It's been a very long time since we've had it.
Mainstream medicine is quackery. It's a religion. Stay away from it.
Yeah. So those are 10 things, all different parts of your lifestyle, from food to consumer items, rent and space that you need, your health needs, everything, water, all of this stuff can be done in new ways. And that's what we've been working on. We're not there yet. We are making great steps. We are staying very, very healthy. And that's the main thing, is to just take care of your health, and you don't let yourself be taken down by all this, because the stress that you feel when you're trying to make that work, we know how to make that work to a degree. That's when we talk about business matters. Some of our videos are about business matters. We know how to navigate it, but we still aren't very involved in it, because ultimately that whole system is just in worship of mammon or material things. The whole thing is just about materialism. So we don't really need any more material things other than just what it takes for us to survive. All of the enriching parts of life are not material. That's why I don't recreate and go somewhere else and try to make my life anew somewhere else temporarily and then come back to my boring life. I just live it and learn new skills. And I understand my purpose here is not to have fun, but it's still enjoyable to do the tasks.
It's definitely time to abandon ship. If you really, truly, honestly want to start living a godly lifestyle, it's time to get out.
Yeah.
Because this is no good. It's only going to get worse too. So thank you for listening. Our website is www.thekembo.com. Please come there and support our work with a purchase or a donation. We have Orgonite for sale. We have videos on our entire archive. Sharon's got great articles and lots of information. Please come to our website and check that out.
Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you again next time.